Two open-source coding models dropped in the same week of July 2025, and the implications are significant. Z.A's GLM-5.2, released under the MIT license with a 1 million token context window, is outperforming several proprietary models on programming benchmarks. Moonshot AI's Kimi K2.7 code, enterprise self-hostable, just jumped its multi-language coding score from 26 to 35 and hits 81 on tool use benchmarks, while using 30% fewer reasoning steps than its predecessor. This isn't incremental progress. This is the gap between open and closed coding models compressing in real time. Let's start with GLM-5.2. Developed by Z.AI, the team behind the ZPU AI ecosystem and the Open GLM model family, this release carries an MIT license. That's not a restrictive research license. Not a commercial use requires negotiation arrangement. MIT. Anyone can use it, modify it, deploy it commercially, no strings attached. The headline feature is a 1 million token context window. For perspective, that's roughly 750,000 words of code, an entire large monorepo held in working memory simultaneously. On programming benchmarks, including HumanEval and MBPP, GLM-5.2 reportedly matches or exceeds several proprietary competitors, including some configurations of GPT-4o. That context length isn't just a spec sheet number. It fundamentally changes what a self-hosted coding model can do. Current tools like GitHub Copilot operate on relatively narrow windows, a file, maybe a few surrounding files. GLM 5.2 can theoretically ingest an entire project. For teams building long-context coding agents, systems that navigate complex code bases, trace dependencies across hundreds of files, or serve as monorepo copilots, this is the model to watch. The trade-off, that massive context window demands substantial compute. Inference latency scales with input length. You're paying for breadth with speed. Kimi K2.7 code takes a different approach. Moonshot and I, the Beijing-based lab behind the Kimi Assistant, designed this model for a specific problem. Agents that don't just write code, but use tools. Function calling, API integration, multi-step workflows where the model needs to decide which tool to invoke, parse the result, and continue reasoning. The multi-language coding score jumping from 26 to 35 across a single version is notable, but the real story is that 81 on tool use benchmarks, combined with 30% fewer reasoning steps. It's not just more capable, it's more efficient, reaching answers faster with less compute overhead. Kimi K2.7 code is explicitly designed for enterprise self-hosting. That matters enormously. Every line of code sent to Claude, to GPT-4, to any cloud API leaves your infrastructure. For defense contractors, financial institutions, healthcare companies, and frankly any organization with serious intellectual property, that's a non-starter. Self-hosting means your proprietary code never leaves your servers. With K2.7's lower reasoning step count, the hardware requirements for acceptable latency become more manageable. You're looking at a model that can power internal coding assistance, CI/CD integrations, and automated code review, entirely air-gapped if necessary. These models aren't competing for the same niche. GLM 5.2 wins for long-context scenarios, mono-repo navigation, large-scale refactoring, code-base-wide search and analysis, and agentic workflows that require holding massive state. If your use case is understand this entire project and make changes across it, GLM 5.2 is your candidate. Kimi K2.7 code wins for tool calling agents and lower latency workflows, IDE integrations where response time matters, automated pipelines that chain multiple tool invocations, and multilingual environments where the model needs to switch context quickly. 30% fewer reasoning steps translates directly to faster responses and lower compute costs at scale. Step back and look at the trajectory. In early 2023, open-source coding models were curiosities, interesting but clearly inferior to proprietary alternatives. By late 2024, models like DeepSeek Coder and CodeLlama had closed significant ground. Now, in July 2025, we have open-source models with MIT licenses matching proprietary systems on standard benchmarks, while offering capabilities, million-token context, enterprise self-hosting, efficient tool use that the proprietary ecosystem struggles to match. The moat around closed models was always performance. That moat is evaporating. What remains is ecosystem, integration, and polish, but those are engineering problems, not fundamental capability gaps. Both releases landing in the same week isn't coincidence. It reflects a competitive dynamic in the open-source AI ecosystem that's accelerating. The signal is clear. Proprietary coding assistants will face mounting pressure to justify their subscription costs when self-hostable alternatives offer comparable performance with full data sovereignty. GitHub Copilot and Claude Code aren't obsolete overnight. Their integrations, user experience, and continuous improvement cycles remain significant advantages, but the value proposition has shifted. The question is no longer whether open source models can code, it's whether closed models can stay far enough ahead to justify the cost, the data exposure, and the vendor lock-in. The practical takeaway: if you're building internal tooling, evaluating coding assistants, or architecting AI-augmented development workflows, these models deserve serious benchmarking against your specific workloads. GLM-5.2 for breadth, Kimi K2.7 code for speed and tool integration, both for sovereignty. The era of open-source coding models being a compromise is ending. What's emerging is a genuine choice, and in many enterprise scenarios, the open option may now be the better one.